Super nice to be here. Today we are talking about change because there was so much of it in the last years. I think we experienced COVID, and then there was this little war in the middle of Europe suddenly, and market inflation going crazy, and shifting entire market dynamics. For me personally, it also meant moving to Lisbon, so a completely different country. I can highly recommend that, and changing my job. And after a year in this new job, there was another big change for me, and that's why I'm standing here today, because after a year we figured out something was not going very well, or not as we expected it, and the market was changing around us, so we had to adapt our business model drastically. And I was, as head of product, already responsible for the entire product, so this was, for me personally, a bit stressful, but also a big learning curve during this. And today I try to summarize what I learned in this, because I also think I would do things differently today. So I hope I can share a little bit of my experience with you. So we're going to talk about how to reinvent your product in a market crisis. Or more specifically, we're going to take a look on product stages and how they are, what they have of implications on a product manager's work. And because it's a personal story, that's me, I'm Vera, I'm head of product at Fox&Owl Energy Experts. We are based in Berlin, but we also have a little tech hub here in Lisbon. I own a dog, so you can find me walking up and down the Tejo a lot nowadays. It's the only flat area in Lisbon, so you start to enjoy this a lot after a while. I also like horses, and I studied physics. I'm a numbers girl. I've been working in startups and products since 2015, so it's been a while already. If you can relate to any, happy to connect. So, as a disclaimer, if you have any questions, I'm not sure if that's okay, but please just jump in and ask them, so I don't start talking about things you don't get. Sasha here has the microphone. She's happy to run around in the middle of the talk also. And as a disclaimer also, I come from a startup world, mostly B2C, so if you have to apply the learnings to something bigger, you might need to tweak it a little bit, just as you have this as a background. So when we talk about how to reinvent your product, we're going to take a look at 3 different steps. The first one is the obvious one. You first have to realize that something is going wrong, so we're going to talk about signs that show you are actually in trouble. The second one is when you see something is going wrong, what helped me was then really taking a step back and realizing where are we standing right now? What product stage are we actually in? And where do we have to adapt things? And then the last thing is taking action, adapting the day-to-day work in order to make it work. So we're going to start with the first one. But this is my experience. So this is the background story. When I joined the company in 2021, our vision was making the real estate investment market digital and transparent, because we realized that the market was very non-digital. Investment real estate objects are properties like houses with 5 to 10 living units, and it's really hard to find them. And when you find them, you have to invest a lot of money and expertise and time into each object in order to figure out, do I want to buy it or not? And there's not really a solution out there, so we said we're going to build that. So we basically built a transaction platform where we digitalized houses, put them online, and people could fully experience the house online and then buy them right on the platform. This was a basic idea. We only had a little problem after a year. So when we started, we were 10 people, and we had the first MVP live, and we had sold the first house. Then within 1 year, it was working really well. We sold more and more houses. We were making big profits. We scaled the company to we were over 50 people. So it was going really well. We had some of the biggest names of startup investors on board. We were actually happy. And then this happened. Little problem called investment real estate crisis. So with the rising energy prices and the rising inflation, banks started to increase the interest rates which suddenly made money really expensive. The years before, it was really, really cheap. And people just slowed down their investments a lot. And we felt that really quickly. And that brings us to the science. So what did we know? Looking back, I think we sort of had like early indicators already in the product, even before like media was talking about a crisis. Because one of the first things was that we were building a product, like in our product team, and then suddenly, and it was really annoying, more and more people came and ordered like special solutions. Like because there was this big client, and he was not really happy with this, so we had to build this special, and then that special. And like, I mean, this always happens, but it started to sum up and got like really annoying. And really worrying too. Then as a second step, we always had like customer feedback. Like we tried to be as close as possible right from the start. People were using our platform a lot. And we always had positive and negative, and we tried to adapt to the negative, as you usually do. But then we heard like more and more voices coming up that started to not support our product vision anymore. So what we actually heard was that in our platform, which was supposed to make the market transparent, more and more buyers raised their voices and said, we don't want it transparent, because as a buyer, your main goal is to reach the best price on the market, like get the best price for the object, which is the lowest price. When you make the market transparent and the object is on the platform and everybody can see it, you're not going to get the best price, because if 5 other people see it and find the object is good, they also put in their vote for their object. And in the end, the seller's going to pick the highest price and not the lowest. This was like a basic problem right from the beginning. And we sort of knew it because like buyers told us, but they still bought and they still used the platform, and they still were happy because they found objects. So it was sort of okay for us. But the voices got louder and louder. So here we had like really the sign of our product vision started to not really work out at this point. But we were still like, it's going to be fine. Step number 3 got more obvious. Our NPS started to drop slowly. So customer satisfaction measure. And then it got more and more clear. Our sales cycle got longer and longer, from a few days to a few weeks. And sales still found explanations why, and it's still happening, but they got longer. And then in the end, when we really knew now we have to act, was when sales KPI dropped and we just stopped selling houses anymore. So what did we do? So we had this sort of situation forced us to take a step back, and went like the business and the product were sort of like very close together, because we had was a startup. We only had this one product. So we did this as a company together. But from a product perspective, I think it's always a little bit different, and you think a little bit different than your CEO. So what we did is we started to think about product stages, like where are we actually? And there's going to be like this little theory in between before I go back to the story. So when we talk about the product stages, normally a product always goes through 3 stages: the product market fit, the scaling, and the perform and innovate. In startups, I think the startup also goes through the same stages. In bigger companies, I believe every product goes through that, because every product has their own vision and needs to reach product market fit in their own little area. And what it means is, when you're in product market fit stage, you as a product manager have your big goal of defining your product vision. What I always try to think about is like these 3 aspects: the market opportunity, the user need, and the product USP. And the goal is always to bring these 3 things together. So in the product market fit, you want to find a market opportunity, which means you go out there and see, is there an area where there's which is nobody serving? Is there new technology opening new ways how to do things? For us, in this case, it was like we saw a lot of real estate agents out there, like single-man real estate agents selling houses, but they were non-digital. We saw platforms out there which were very digital, but they were all focused on like small single-family homes. So the space of investment real estate in a digital way was basically empty. That was our market opportunity. Our user need, we saw that our users, like people who buy and sell houses, had to invest the money and the time to find them and then to check them and finally like finalize the selling process. So we saw this big pain of spending so much time and money here, so the user need. And from the product USP, we had both. We had people with a lot of real estate experience on board, but we also had been scaling other companies before. And we know we are able to build this one digital platform which can like take over the market. So with the product USP, I mean, like you want to be, when you decide on what you're going to do as a product team, you want to choose something where you can potentially become the best. And we said, this is our superpower. We can bring the expertise in the real estate sector together with the scalable digital experience, and really build, can build this one platform for everybody. That's the product market fit stage. And when you check this, you, as a product team, you start building your MVP, you bring it out there, you learn, you iterate, and after a while, I think you get the certainty of that you actually have reached it, that you had brought these 3 segments together, and you make this check. And then you move on to scale. Oh, that's the wrong direction. With the goal to expand your product reach. Like from your small initial target group, you start thinking about, okay, how can I expand? How can I increase my target group? How can I increase my product along the user journey? Like how can I make the scope of my product, the reach, bigger? But you always keep the 3 elements in mind to make it work. And the same is then for the perform and innovate. Once you have built this product with the reach, you're in a position that can potentially rule your market segment. So your job is to perform and optimize this, to optimize it in order to perform really well, to build this superstar product on the market. Nobody dares to build a copy of it because yours is just the best to use, the best solution. And you stay on top of the market changes and the user needs. So you are the first one who notices if something changes and can adapt your product accordingly. So where we had made a check on a product market fit because we had combined the 3 things. We had put the MVP out. We saw really great numbers. We were about to scale. So we were in the middle of the scaling phase. But then when the market crisis hit, we had to take a step back. We still saw the market opportunity. We still saw the product USP. We were still able to build it. We had partly built it already. The problem was the users didn't want it anymore. And this is something, looking back, we might have moved on a little bit too quick before making this check on the product market fit. Because it was working in that case, because people were buying it and using it a lot, but the buyers never really were convinced of the concept itself. So we had sort of a temporary user need, but maybe not a long-term one. So, but latest when the market changed, we realized, okay, that is definitely missing. So we had to take a step back and had to completely reconsider what are we going to do, because the transaction market, there was not much happening. And the players who are still in there, they are not happy. And then, because we always were really close to the users, we also realized that also the focus of the users shifted in this, with these new market conditions. Because before, everybody was focused on selling and buying, optimizing the portfolio value, and trying to figure out what is the best price I can get, what is it worth my portfolio. And then they suddenly were keeping their properties. So the mindset really shifted of okay, what do I do now with the property I have, and how do I make it future-proof? And at the same time, the whole attention and focus of governments about the climate crisis shifted, also fueled by the rising energy prices, because it suddenly started to hurt that energy is so expensive. And the first regulations were put in place, and the first discussions happened about that house owners have to take action to make their houses more emit less CO2 and make them more help join the fight against climate crisis. So there were first regulations put in place which were forcing house owners to renovate their homes in order to make them more energy efficient. And house owners got really insecure because some of the rules were applying to them, some were not. There were new regulations upcoming which sounded really drastically, but they were still in discussion. So they were really insecure in the situation. We said, okay, if you're very insecure, maybe you need a partner who takes you by the hand and tells you what is actually the best thing you can do for your property or your portfolio. So what we did is we became a digital energy consultation. And the idea is we sort of use the same principle. We are still analyzing properties in depth. So we are actually building digital twins of each property that comes to us. But now we are not selling the digital property. Now we are analyzing it. And we can run analysis across the property and tell the house owner exactly, if you insulate your roof first with exactly 16 centimeters of this insulation, then you can save a lot if you build your new heating in, because you need less heating power in your house. So in total, you save a lot. So in this case, the three segments, market opportunity, we saw that there's nobody out there doing it. There are energy consultants, but it's sort of similar to the real estate market. They're all non-digital, and they were totally overwhelmed by the sudden demand of house owners. So there was a huge over demand here. We saw the user need because people were really desperate to find some solution. And when they were talking to the heating man was like, buy this heating, it's the best. It's only a bit expensive, but it's the best. So there was nobody independent who was really guiding them. So we saw the user need. And for the product USP, we said, okay, we can build a scalable product. What is missing is sort of like the expertise in this field. So we actually brought two new partners in the company who were one of the leading figures in the energy efficiency market in Germany. So we had the 15 years of experience on board at this point too. So we could also check that. We had the experience and the digital skills. So that's about the product stage, identifying where you are and where you actually should be. And for us, we were in the scaling phase, but we actually weren't. We moved down to the product market fit stage again. And this happened last summer in August, basically everything within 1 month. So it was really drastic change in really short time. It was a bit stressful, and also like company culture-wise, exciting, challenging. Because we also had to let people leave because real estate agents suddenly didn't have a job anymore. Some became energy consultants, which is really great. We needed new experts on board. It was a big change. And we really started at ground zero. And that for us as a product team really meant adjusting our entire work, how we worked in our team. Which affected and what I wanted to point out is the research, the process, the team, and the risk, which are the main elements of our work. So when we talk about research, where we were at this point was we didn't basically know anything anymore. Because before we had a good feeling about the market, we were more on this A/B level testing. We were developing the product. We were thinking about new feature concepts was more about the concept testing, about performance optimization, how do you use this? Would you rather use this or this? Does the UX work right? And so on. But when we moved to this product market fit stage, we didn't know anything anymore. So we had to really go down to the basics. And our research completely changed because now we were trying to get long slots with users and start with questions like, how are you? How's your life? What are you thinking about before you go to sleep? Really trying to figure out if what we claimed to be our new product actually made sense this time. The second one is because we were on this ground zero again, we also had to change our process drastically. Before, we had already in the scaling phase, we already had a product established, it was going well, so we were building sort of bigger iterations of the product already. And it also we had to meet some level of expectations because we had these big investors on our platform who were using it, they wanted to have it right. So we had bigger release cycles where we actually brought something live and worked towards these bigger goals. When we moved down to ground zero, we didn't have anything. So everything we did was better than nothing, mostly. And our main goal was to learn very quickly. So we tried to conceptualize everything in a way that you could learn as fast as possible. For example, the first question we had was, we knew our target group was 55 plus 10. So our first question was do they actually use digital tools? And we were not sure about it. So the first thing we did is, in order to analyze a house, we need a lot of documents and photos. So we built a landing page with a button and a drag and drop field. Like the designer's dream, we had long discussions about that it's okay. And then sent an email to the users and said please upload your documents, we're gonna then analyze your house. And the biggest learning was they loved it, and we got spammed with documents. We got 70 pictures of each property owner, pictures of the garage doors, and the garage doors with a cat, and the garage door with a dog, and the back of the garage door, everything. So our energy consultants were a little annoyed by our chest because they had to sort through all the garage doors. So in the next step, we actually built a product that limited the user instead of motivated to really just upload the 5 documents we need and maybe 10 more pictures, but that's it. So that's how we learned, and we were really strict about these 2-week cycles because everything more we didn't know. We really tried to break it down to the essential thing we wanted to learn. And I think this was a big mindset shift also in the team because you're used to the level of product you're delivering, and suddenly you bring live these ugly things, super basic, and afterwards you throw it away, or not, or rebuild it. And I think this took us a few months to really internalize this new way of working. The next thing is the team. What I realized also after a few months is that people coped differently with this big change. And some people were more happy than others with it. Because before, it was more perfectional, it was more detail-oriented. We had a design system in place, and spacing method, and consistency across products method. So, and good code quality method, because we were building up on it. But when we moved back to the ground zero, it didn't matter anymore, at all. So people who were more motivated by conceptual work were much happier at that point, and people who had more of an 80-20 approach than people who were very detail-oriented. And it was for some people it was easier to adjust to that than others. And generally, people who were motivated by change and didn't need this, before we had the big milestones set up, we had the big vision, we knew exactly where we were going, we thought we were going. So it felt very safe. At this point, it didn't felt like any safe anymore. So people who were sort of could somehow find joy in change were the ones who were thriving the best in these teams. And the last thing is the risk, because I think this sort of was the underlying thing beneath everything. Before, we were only bringing things live we had validated before, because we didn't want to take the risk that a user got annoyed, one of the investors. It was also very consistent and pretty. And then it didn't. We really tried to focus on what do we want to learn and what's the easiest way to learn this. And if it was a user test with a few mock-ups, it was fine. If it was a live test with a button and a drag and drop area, it was cool. So the risk we were taking were much, much bigger at this point. but we also threw things away much, much faster. And was much more ugly. So this basically is the third step of how we adjusted our product team's work according to this new stage. And one thing, like, it was very challenging at some point because it was a lot of change and things didn't go as planned, like quickly. I'm going to read it. You don't have to read it. And one thing that drove us very much and kept us motivated was that very early after, like, I think, like when things were changing very quickly, we had a lot of communication going on because, like, 1 week later, things were completely different already. So in one of the all hands, we were expecting an update from the sales agents because they had started to sell the product actually, like energy consultation, the week before. And I was honestly a bit nervous because I didn't expect it to go well after a few days only. And they were sitting in this meeting and were like raining. They were super happy. Because they said it happened the first time since the last few years that a customer called them because they wanted to sign a contract. And this was sort of like our first like check that we actually are on the right path. And this kept going like this since then, so since last year, because we realized we are now actually solving a big user problem, and people are actually super motivated and emotionally engaged in this, and this is was really driving us. So this was sort of like the first sign that we were now doing things right. And just kept doing it. No. Sorry? Ah, yeah, we're right. And this has been like the same, like symptoms appeared like more and more in the last months. Before we talked about the symptoms that something is going wrong. What we now see is sort of like the opposite. Our NPS, our customer satisfaction is actually going up and up. So we're now close to 50, which is amazing for me. We see that customers actually are overusing the product instead of dropping out. So we're still having the spamming problem sometimes, except we have like warnings, like we did everything. And we actually see the sales cycles decreasing instead of increasing. So we have customers, like actually like a good group of customers is signing the contract in the first contact with the salesperson on the phone directly, like sending an email on the site. Yeah. So we are sort of moving on. When I did the slide, I almost put us in the scaling phase again. And I was like, no, Vera, what did you learn? So now we are still at the product market fit stage, but we moved up there. And I think we are on a really good track because we see all these good signs. But we are still validating and putting tests out there. And we are still in these short cycles. And we still try to be really hands-on and still learn as fast as possible. We are not scaling our customer base or the product at the moment because we really want to make it right this time. And I think because it's so important to get the base right, or at least understand where you are, you can still scale if someone insists to, but you need to, I think especially as a product team, you're responsible of building a product that will last. So you have the chance to really understand your users and make sure that you can check this product market fit stage. So we are still there. Our CEO gets annoyed, like he's starting to be annoying now because he wants to scale. So it's like my job is now like easy. But yeah. So yeah, I think that was faster than expected. That's me. I'm super happy to reach out if you have any questions afterwards, but maybe there are any questions already.
Yeah.
Hello. Thank you for the nice presentation first. And second, my question is, when do you know is the right time to scale it?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I have the right answer there, to be honest. I think there's also not the only one time you can start scaling. I think it's something that will start gradually because there are opportunities are coming up when you when you see customers are happy, they start requesting more of you as well. Like we have customers who are actually like super unsatisfied that we can't provide the follow-up services, like for example, like helping them to also implement the measures, because we're also doing the consultation because they trust us and they want more help. So I think there's not the only place you can start, but I think you can start small at some point when you are certain that you have like a sort of check, and start like exploring other fields. But I think for me, it would be important that you at least know where you are, so you still make sure that you complete this field of like making sure that you check all the product market fit things at some point. But then you can gradually start to scale.
Thank you.
So also on my behalf, thank you for the presentation. So in the moment when you started noticing that things are not going in the right way, the metrics is showing that something needs to be changed, what was the reaction of your, would say, C-level people or maybe investors? Because sometimes people get this panicky mode and survival and, you know, they leave the ship. How was your experience with that?
We were a startup, so we were 50 people back then. And so everybody was in the same boat. And I think this communication was very essential in the beginning as well, that like we are in the same boat, so we have to act together. And this was not me standing there and saying we have to change our business, because we were like, it's also not my choice. But I think like my position was like to raise the hand, so like problem coming, big one. So what we did actually is like the CEO also, of course, had his own network. So he actually had the same observations, just on a different level. So he saw that energy consultants in his network got overrun by customers. He also saw that other startups in the same, like in the real estate area, started to have like big problems with investors and so on. So this was a common thing. Like he brought up the idea, maybe energy consultation is what is our next field. So this was something we did jointly.
Thank you.
We can stay in this row. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing your story. Super interesting. I was wondering what was the marketing strategy? So you had an existing product and you had users on that platform. Did you introduce your new product on the same one, or it was a complete different one? And did you then shut down the old one?
We shut down the old one. So we really started from zero. What we did is we used the old target group, like the old user group, to learn. So we did a lot of interviews with them, how they see the subject. We didn't even try to move them. I actually don't know if any of them has moved, because also our target group sort of like got bigger in this step, because it was only about investment real estate. But at that point, our main focus is actually single-family home owners, and the investment portfolio owners is only a small side growth, basically, because it's also like by nature much smaller, because people have to have money to be in this target group.
So other rows, other questions? Raise your hand if you have any. So I do have how to overcome it, how to not burn out, because it's quite a dramatic shift for people who don't own the business. So you're basically not so in, you can quit, but how to overcome it inside the company, how to calm down and how to deal with it. It's a huge stress, I guess.
Little. I don't know. I think everybody has to find their own way. For me, I have been working with for example, our founder before already, and he started his previous company in 2008 in the last big market crisis. So he was sort of like good with crisis. But I think like a common sense which we had at some point in the company was like, it's super stressful, but it's the job, and we didn't overwork like that much I don't know, didn't have to push for it. And I think like in our team also we have like really experienced people who also know that maybe it's better to start fresh the next morning than to like overdo it that day.
Hi, Vera. My question relates to how did you find this opportunity of the energy consultancy? I think you kind of mentioned that during your talk, but you had lots of opportunities back then, and why did you decide to bet on this one specifically?
Yeah. So the idea really was based on our previous one because we knew the market very well because we were sort of in the market already. We knew at least a part of the user group very well because we were talking to them a lot. So the idea was sparked by that. And then what was sort of like decision maker in the end was really like that we saw that politics and public attention shifted to this topic a lot as well. And you probably could have taken another topic too. In the end, you have to decide, right? But I think this was our deciding moment. We said, okay, this is going to be a huge topic in the next years. And it's also a super nice one because it has a meaning to work in this because you can actually make a difference. I love how many questions you have.
I wonder how to distinguish real crisis out of the crisis that you might think it's the one. To prevent yourself from the wrong decisions.
Good one. No idea. How do you do that? I think at one point it was just clear for us that this is a real crisis because there was the first companies going like bankrupt and investors jumping off. And at some point, it doesn't matter, right? Like if your company is in a crisis, no matter if it's an objective crisis or a subjective crisis, you have a problem, so you have to change something.
Okay, any other questions? We still have some time. Okay, then it's time to say thank you to Vera for this nice talk.
Thanks for having me. Enjoy your day.